My name is Sylvia. Standing in the enchanting amber light of the private dining room at the Ivy, I'm surrounded by the gentle flicker of candles and the warm faces of our dearest friends and family. My fiancé, Ethan, stands near the bar, his eyes finding mine every few minutes, a silent reassurance that I'm here, and this is real. For a split second, I almost convince myself that the past 2 weeks have been a nightmare, that my parents haven't tried to shatter the happiness I've finally found. My parents are seated at the far end of the table. My father, Henry, is on his second glass of whiskey, his face set in a permanent scowl. My mother, Victoria, is wearing a silk lavender blouse, her expression a mask of false pleasantness, the kind she puts on for public events. They've called me a few times since their encounter with Ethan, but I've ignored their calls. I couldn't bring myself to uninvite them, and a small, exhausted part of me hoped they'd behave themselves tonight. But then, at 8:17 p.m. the door to the private dining room swings open, and in walks a woman I haven't seen in 6 years. Her name is Lily. She's 36, with a strong, athletic build and a calmness that comes from having overcome great challenges. She was my best friend during the darkest period of my life. Lily walks straight up to me, bypassing the pleasantries. She holds a manila envelope in her hand and says my name in a serious tone. She tells me she needs 5 minutes and that it can't wait. I lead her into the small corridor outside the dining room, the sounds of the celebration muffled behind the closed door. She hands me the envelope and urges me to open it. Inside, there are medical records from the hospital where I suffered a miscarriage. A dated discharge summary and a letter from the doctor confirm that I lost the baby at 18 weeks. Beneath these papers are printed text messages between my mother and my ex-boyfriend, Derek. 3 months ago, my mother reached out to Derek, asking him to confirm that I had given birth to a child and put it up for adoption without his knowledge. Derek, to his credit, refused. He told her that what she was asking for was a lie and that he wanted no part in it. My mother persisted twice more, but Derek stopped responding. Lily got these documents because Derek, feeling uncomfortable about my mother's requests, contacted her. They'd kept in touch over the years, and she drove 6 hours to make sure I had the proof before my wedding. Holding these papers in my hands, I feel a deep, quiet sadness well up inside me. It's not anger. It's a sorrow that comes from finally having evidence of what I've always known but could never prove. My parents aren't just flawed, they're deliberately cruel, trying to control my life and destroy my happiness. I walk back into the dining room. Ethan reads my expression and comes to stand beside me. I place the envelope on the table in front of my parents, in front of all our guests. I speak clearly, without raising my voice. I've spent too many years shouting into the void, and I'm not going to waste the peace I've found. I tell everyone what the documents contain and what my parents did 2 weeks ago. My father's jaw tightens, and my mother stares at the tablecloth. They don't say a word. I ask them to leave, and they do. The room falls silent for what feels like an eternity. Then, Ethan's mother, Grace, a kind-hearted woman who's always treated me like her own, stands up and starts to clap. Slowly, the rest of the table joins in. I stand there, holding Ethan's hand, with Lily across the table looking at me with tear-filled eyes. The applause washes over me, healing the wounds of all the years I was called a liar and no one stood up for me. Our wedding the next day is small and intimate. It's just the two of us, our closest friends, and Lily in the front row. Ethan cries during his vows, and I wait for him to finish before I start to cry through mine. Lily hands me a tissue at the perfect moment, just like she always did. My parents aren't there, and it's not a loss. It's a boundary I've finally set and stopped apologizing for. I've learned that some people don't stop trying to control you because they change. They stop because you finally break free and build a life so strong that their words can't touch you. Let me rewind a bit. I grew up in a family where appearances were everything. My parents, Henry and Victoria, were wealthy socialites who cared more about their reputation than their daughter's well-being. When I was 8 years old, I accidentally broke a valuable vase at a dinner party. I told my father it was an accident, but he looked at the guests and said, "She's always so clumsy. Can't do anything right." Everyone laughed, and I felt a deep sense of shame. From that moment on, I knew that no matter what I did, my parents had already decided who I was. For the next 20 years, I tried to be the perfect daughter. I dressed in the right clothes, spoke the right words, and apologized for things I didn't do. I was constantly trying to earn their love, but it was always just out of reach. Then, 3 years ago, I met Ethan at a charity event in a penthouse. He was a 33-year-old software engineer, with a gentle smile and a kind heart. He spilled his coffee on my dress within the first 5 minutes of meeting me. His apology was so sincere that I couldn't help but laugh. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers and had a conversation that felt like a breath of fresh air after years of suffocating in my parents' expectations. Ethan didn't try to change me. He accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. He asked me questions and listened to my answers. After 15 months of dating, he proposed in our living room. It was a simple moment, just him on one knee with a ring his grandfather had left him, his voice trembling as he said my name. I said yes before he even finished his sentence. We set the wedding for a Saturday in late October. The rehearsal dinner at the Ivy was supposed to be a celebration of our love, a time for our loved ones to come together and share in our joy. But my parents had other plans. 2 weeks before the wedding, Ethan called me. His voice was cautious, like he was handling something delicate. He told me that my parents had visited him at his office without telling me. They sat across from him and told him that I had been pregnant at 23, given birth to a child, and abandoned it. My father used some harsh words, and my mother whispered, "Don't let her deceive you." I sat in my car in the parking lot, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling like the ground was falling out from under me. The truth was, when I was 23, I was in a relationship with Derek. He was charming at first, but I soon realized that his charm was just a mask for his controlling nature. When I got pregnant, I was terrified. Derek didn't want the baby, and he made me feel like I had no choice but to end the pregnancy. I carried the baby for 4.5 months before a miscarriage took it away from me. It was a devastating loss, and I buried my grief deep inside me. I didn't tell Ethan because I never found the right time, and that part of my life was a dark chapter one wanted to forget. My parents knew what had happened. My mother drove me to the hospital and held my hand in the waiting room. But they still chose to lie to Ethan, trying to drive a wedge between us. That night, I drove to Ethan's apartment and told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his hand holding mine tightly. When I finished, he said, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." He didn't blame me for not telling him, he just grieved with me. But the damage my parents had done was still there. I knew that a seed of doubt had been planted, and it wouldn't just go away. My parents had calculated that a lie told close to the wedding could break us apart, but they didn't count on Lily. Looking back on that rehearsal dinner, I realize it was a turning point in my life. It was the moment I finally stood up to my parents and took control of my own story. It was the start of a new chapter, filled with love, acceptance, and the freedom to be myself. If you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to rewrite your truth, know that it's not the end. Your real life can begin right there, in the moment you decide to fight back.